Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Good morning. How y'all doing? Just gonna wait for you guys to tune in. Good morning. Um, Good morning, Maria. Good morning. It always cracks me up when people send video requests. Like, what are the video requests for? Like, what typically happens? Is that like me answering a question or what is that? 876, good morning. It says you have a question. Go ahead and drop your question. If I can answer it, I will. Lenora, Grand Rising to you as well. Mansmer, good morning. It's Dexter, good morning. If this is your first time joining, good morning. Happy hump day. Um, if you've never joined before, my name is Aisha Chidowe. I'm an immigration lawyer here in the United States, office in Atlanta, but I represent clients in all 50 states. We handle family-based immigration, marriage-based, family, consular processing, removal cases, um, appeals, waivers. If if you have a humanitarian case, VAWA, T visas, U visas. Onwe, first time joining my live stream. Thank you. And welcome, Sunnison. Welcome. I remember you, Sunnison. I think you were one of the winners or top contenders when we did the can you answer the naturalization questions? I think you're one of the people that answered a lot. Latoya on YouTube, good morning. Thanks for joining. Today, I don't really have any topics for you guys. I know that there were a couple of questions yesterday that I couldn't get to. So today I will try to answer as many of them. If you guys asked questions yesterday that didn't get answered, you can pop them here, and if I can answer them, I will answer them. If you want to schedule a call, our number is 407-995-6567. I'm going to put that in. I'm just going to pin that while you type your questions. 44333-8751. And then I will answer. It's hard for me to type and talk, as you know. Okay, so pin. All right, so it's pinned in there. How long does it take to get a BFD, which means a bona fide determination for a T visa case after biometrics? Timeline doesn't go based on biometrics. Biometrics is something that must happen after you submit the application. However, a bona fide determination is not guaranteed to happen, because a bona fide determination is somewhat of a pre-approval, saying that your case has a bona fide determination that it's more likely that you have a T trafficking case. Not everybody is going to get that. And also, even if you don't get that, it doesn't mean that your case is ultimately going to be denied. So it's really hard to give you a timeline from biometrics. I will say that for most people, it's probably about somewhere between like 8 to 11 months. For most people, if you are from one of the countries with an adjudicative hold, I'm not yet sure if those are going to have a gap, meaning like you're going to have a more delayed timeline, because if you're one of the 39 countries that have an adjudicative hold, it means that they can make approvals on your case or approve work permits until after they lift the hold. The hold is meant to be initially for 90 days when they offer directives of how they want to review the cases from these countries. Having said that, I will say, because someone asked me this yesterday, one of our clients actually asked me this, with the prima facie determinations for valid cases, are we seeing those ones being made for people within the 39 countries? And, so I told her I'll have my staff check. And we are seeing prima facie decisions still being made, because a prima facie is not really an approval, it's just like a pre-approval. But the one that they're pausing on are going to be work permit approvals and an actual approval of the case type that you filed. Lucky Girl says, what is the estimated wait time after submitting valid case to get a work permit? Again, it depends on what kind of case you submitted with your VAWA. Did you do a VAWA standalone case, or did you submit it with an adjustment of status? If you submitted it with an adjustment of status, I would say now the work permit timeline is more 6 to 8 months. I know last year I was saying like 4 to 6 months, but from the ones we're getting, and as I check when it was submitted, we're seeing more like 6 to 8 months from that time. This is if you have an adjustment of status application. If you don't have an adjustment of status application and you just submitted VAWA alone for whatever reason, you're not going to get a work permit until your VAWA case is approved, which can be 3 years from now, depending on what you selected in your application. Now, if you are a VAWA applicant who submitted a VAWA standalone case because, for example, you were married to a green card holder and were ineligible to submit an adjustment of status and work permit and travel permit at that time, it is most likely that you're now eligible to submit that. So what you want to check is the priority date on your I-360. And speaking of that, I just realized today is the 18th. So I'm going to check the March bulletin to see if it's out so I can tell you guys what to expect for March. And the visa bulletin is really going to apply to people. Oh, it's not here yet. That's so interesting. This used to come out like on the 15th. So it's actually not available yet. So never mind. I was going to give you guys the date. But to go back to the February bulletin, basically anyone who is married to an LPR that's a victim of abuse and you only submitted the VAWA application because you were married to a green card holder, if your VAWA application was received before January 22nd, 2026, you are now eligible to attach your adjustment of status application, your work permit, and your travel permit application, and also request a social security number. If you are not a VAWA applicant and you're filing based on family, like you fall under the F2A category, like spouse of a green card holder or child under 21 of a green card holder, if you have a receipt date before January 22nd, 2026, you are eligible as well. However, there is a caveat, to this. So listen up and listen carefully. When you're married to a green card holder, you must always be in status, meaning you cannot be an overstay on your visa. There is no exception to this if you're married to an LPR, unless you're a VAWA applicant. Now, if you're married to a U.S. citizen, it doesn't matter if you're an overstay. You can file for adjustment of status, if you enter the country with inspection under certain kinds of visas, like a tourist visa, an F1 visa, some of those types of visas. But if you're married to a green card holder, you must always be in status through the period of submission of your application, and you cannot have worked without authorization if you're married to an LPR. If you worked without authorization, because you're married to a U.S. citizen, you shouldn't, but USCIS will generally forgive you for working under the table if you're married to a U.S. citizen. But you never, ever, ever, ever want to claim in any document or anywhere, for that matter, that you are a U.S. citizen. Because if you claim that you're a U.S. citizen, you're looking at a permanent bar, unless you qualify for like a U visa or a T visa, all right? Okay, let me go back to some of the questions. Good morning, Roger. How are you? Someone says, it's been almost 4 years since I applied for VAWA. Yeah, for a lot of people right now, it's taken about 3.5 years for VAWA cases to be adjudicated. I will definitely say that we really saw a slowdown in applications last year. A slowdown in receipt notices. That's what I mean, in receipt notices, and more in-depth review of our cases, like in the request for the RFEs. I think personally, that the strategy that USCIS took last year, where they were doing the initial, when this new administration first entered in, they tried something new with the ways they were sending the RFEs. But those RFEs weren't very clear. They weren't very clear. Instead of writing what was missing, they would put an X mark, but not really select anything in the X category. And so, and if that was challenging for us in the legal field, I imagine for those doing it themselves, they wouldn't even know which one or what it is that they're saying that they're missing. What we're seeing is that they're a bit more clear even though they're still using the check mark, but they're a bit more clear in the new RFEs that we're seeing this year. So hopefully that'll speed things up. But I can't really say. People ask all the time, why do these cases take so long? I don't know, but what I suspect is that, in humanitarian based cases, you will find that those generally take a longer time because of a few things. First of all, there's only a certain department that reviews cases coming from there. So, for instance, if you file a marriage based case, you're being reviewed or interviewed by your field office, right? Where you have field offices in every state, So like they're just deciding your I-130 and your I-485 at the same time. So there's just by sheer matter of volume, there are more officers to review those cases versus if, let's say, you're filing for like a VAWA case, a T case where it's just one office like Vermont that's reviewing it. So even though you get your receipt from a different state, late September, they started allowing people to send their receipt notices to different locations. Those files will eventually still be transferred. So there's the one unit that's reviewing hundreds and hundreds of thousands of cases. And just by default, humanitarian cases are much heavier. Like the packets are much bigger. Like, this would be like I have some of these on my desk, right? Like, so these are much thicker than maybe a marriage-based case, because you're not only providing evidence of good faith marriage, you're also providing evidence of abuse and, affidavits of those or whatever. You're writing a declaration. Those declaration testimonies have to be read. Same thing with humanitarian a trafficking case or U case or even asylum, because those cases take a much longer time. For any of you here who has ever filed for asylum, you can testify that those interviews too are really long, because there's several categories that they have to go through. So that's why I believe the timeline is longer than normal cases, but also because there are more people aware that if they're in an abusive marriage, that they can file, versus before, where many people didn't know, until people started educating them on it. So yeah. All right, let's answer some questions. Obnana says, what's happening with immigrants interviews in Africa? Africa is a continent, so if you want to be more specific with your question, that will help me answer you more accurately. Do you think it is normal that your I-130 was approved on April 6, 2025, and your I-485 is still pending? So friend Schnell, it depends. That's definitely a long time. So this is one of those things that without knowing your immigration history, it's hard for me to say. But generally, the 485 is generally approved after the I-1 at the same time as the I-130 or within a few days of each other, unless there's an admissibility issue. So when you file like a family or marriage-based case, there are two things you're looking at. The I-130 determines and establishes the relationship. So there's the I-130 that determines, is this a genuine marriage? Is this a genuine mother and daughter relationship? Is this a genuine father and son relationship or sibling relationship or whatever? So that one can be approved. The I-485 determines admissibility issues. Admissibility issues are going to look like, does this person need a waiver? Has this person misrepresented themselves? Has this person ever claimed to be a U.S. citizen? Is there like a country check or pause or whatever they're doing? So those are the things. Or have they ever I'm just trying to think what else. Like, so basically, how like when you look at a 485 question, there's a series of yes, no, yes, no, yes, no answers under inadmissibility. Those are the things that they're going to be looking at. So for some cases, there might be some things that they need to clarify, or some things that they may be researching. For instance, like someone can get approved for an I-130 and then they do some background check and see that, in their B1, B2, they did say, or they did lie on their application saying that they were married so that they could get a tourist visa, but really they weren't married, right? So that might be something where they're like, okay, we got to send like an RFE about that. So that might be why. But If you're not from one of the countries with the pause, I would suggest reaching out to USCIS to see what the hold is on your 485, because if there is an issue, it's better for them to tell you what the issue is so you can address it sooner rather than later. Okay. Do you think it's normal that your I-130 was? I just answered that one. Will it be safe to travel on my advance parole after the adjudicative pause is live for the 39 countries? So remember, adjudicative pause just means that they can't approve any new cases that they've not yet approved. It doesn't affect the advanced parole that you already have. The advanced parole allows you to come back into the United States and it is valid. However, there are other things to consider if you have an advanced parole. With an advanced parole, you want to make sure that you don't have any pending criminal cases or any cases that have been adjudicated against you. You know, you want to make sure that it depends for me, and when clients call to ask whether it's okay for them to travel, some of the things I look at is what stage of their case are we in before I can say, yes, I feel comfortable, or no, I don't feel comfortable. So yeah. Obi Nana says, will immigrant visas interviews be denied if you're part of the 75 banned countries? So what is a visa? What is an immigrant visa? An immigrant visa means that you get a visa from outside the United States. It means if you are doing consular process, because I don't want this to be confused with you being inside the United States. These are visas that are given to you if you're outside the United States. It is likely that it would be denied or you receive an administrative hold. I will let you know next month. We have a client from one of the banned countries that has an interview early March. No, not early March, mid-March. So I will let you know. But I suspect there will be an administrative hold, or the case will be denied based on the proclamation. If it is denied based on the proclamation, one of the things that I recommend is that your I-130 still remains active. And once that ban is lifted, you can then try to ask for a reschedule because that ban has been lifted. So that's what it is. And then if you are not yet in the interview stage, one of the ways you can just kind of buy time to wait and see is you can upload, be slower in uploading your things onto the National Visa Center. Because with the National Visa Center, as long as you touch your application once. What do I mean touch your application once? It means any activity on your application once a year keeps the application open and valid, so that you can kind of keep it open before you're scheduled. If you're from a country that already takes a long time, for instance, Obinana, I'm going to assume you're either Nigerian or Ghanaian. I'm not sure where you're from actually. Like if you're Nigerian, for instance, like consular processing, getting a consular interview can take like a year and a half after your case has been documentary qualified anyway. So if you were in the process now, you're probably not getting an interview anyway until like late 2028. So that also buys you some time, to see, for because the 75 countries is different from the 39 countries. They're two different things, guys. Because remember, the 75 countries is a pause. It's a pause for them to redo public charge. They want to redo public charge. Again, I don't think this is the best strategy because you should judge each application on their merits based on each person's financial situation, because the whole point is that the 75 countries tend to have public charge. Meaning they tend to take public benefits. But honestly, I've been doing this a long time. And I can tell you that there are very, 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 very few immigrants that take public assistance. Very few. Like they will rather work like 5 jobs, than to take public assistance. But let me not digress. So if you're from there, you're in a pause. So that pause is going to be lifted very soon. Very soon. I mean, apart from the fact that there is a lawsuit, they need to lift that pause once they, decided or recreated new applications for public charge, just like they did in the first Trump administration where they created the well test. It was called the, I've forgotten now what the name of the form was called, but we had the public charge in the first administration. But what they did is they didn't do the pause. They just created this new 7-test well test thing, which I fully expect them to be doing that. So it's just, why do this and just mess up everybody, mess up people who have been scheduled, people who have paid for tickets, people who have, flown down, to support their family members that are coming in, all for nothing, right? If you are from the banned countries, banned and pause are two different things. The banned countries from consular processing is going to be a little different. With that, I don't know when they're going to lift the ban. They said they will review those every 6 months, but honestly, I cannot guesstimate. I'm not a guesser. I'm not clairvoyant. I don't see visions. So I cannot tell you when those ones will go. But the pauses will be lifted. It's just how quickly are they going to do whatever they need to do to make the standards harder, in terms of proving that you're not a public charge. If you guys want me to give you some of the synopsis of what it was the last time, which I believe will be some of what it is this time, which would be basically your ability to speak English. That's one of the things that they looked at the last time. What was your highest level of education? High school, if you went to high school, do you have like your diploma, GED, or it's been so long I graduated from high school, whatever you get from high school, they looked at that, or college, of course, if you have college. And all the things I'm listing, if you don't have one, it doesn't necessarily disqualify you. They weigh them. They look at the credit history of both you and your spouse, filing, just to know that you guys have good credit, which was silly, because what we had to do back then is, a lot of applicants don't even have social security numbers. So we'll literally have to run a credit check and it would say not valid because there's no social security number. And we'll literally have to screenshot that and add it to the application because they don't have any credit because they don't even have social security numbers. So it was silly. So hopefully they don't have something as silly as that this time. And then the other thing was the health condition. So especially, and this one I know affected a lot of people that were filing for their parents. So if you're filing for your parents and they're older, some of the things they'll look at is what is their health condition, and depending on the health condition, they'll look at the person sponsoring them. What is their income? What is their ability to buy insurance or private insurance? All immigrants back then, to submit the application, we had to buy and purchase temporary insurance for them. Meaning not that we purchased it for them, but we would refer them to different insurance agencies that would offer immigrants temporary insurance because they wanted them to have that so that they wouldn't be a burden to the health system, or where basically they can refuse you care. Have I listed all 7? I think I've listed all 7. Yeah, so those were some of the things. So I suspect it would be the same, plus or minus. So we'll see what it is. Okay, so let me see what else you guys have. If I want to apply for VAWA, is it good to be in contact with your partner, or is it not good? We have to stop talking about it. Honestly, it doesn't matter. What matters is, did you have a real relationship? Were you in an abusive marriage? That's what they're looking at. If the two exist and you have good moral character, doesn't matter whether you still talk to your partner or not. I can't tell you guys how often I get on a phone call and, people will tell me how abusive their spouses are, how controlling, that they don't even have access to their bank, their emails, the social media, their Cash App, all those things, because their spouse has full control of that. I ask them, well, so what is it that makes you stay in this relationship? But for many people, there's such a power dynamic or financial control dynamic or fear-based reasons why people stay with others. Or even sometimes when we have people who have marriages that are pretty much DEAD, and they they have let's say they have a 2-year green card, and their spouse is not willing to continue with their removal of condition on I-751, but it's really a struggle for them to choose to divorce because they're like, well, it's going to ruin my chances, it's going to screw me over. Even though myself and so many other lawyers come here every single day and say, even if you are divorced, you can still be eligible for both VAWA and to remove the conditions on your green card, as long as you can prove that you were truly married and you had a genuine marriage. Because remember, it's about the intent of your marriage. USCIS is not saying that people cannot divorce, because how can they say that? Even the person in office has been divorced twice, right? So people get divorced, but that doesn't disqualify you. Or people stay together despite the abuse. It's called battered women syndrome, even though it happens to men too, but it's like a battered spouse syndrome, where sometimes you stay in a relationship because somehow you think you're going to save the person, you're going to change the person, or the person is going to change. They're going to want to love you better. Like sometimes some people stay because it makes them feel like they failed. Sometimes some people stay in this relationship, so keep communicating because they don't want other people to say, I told you so. So there's so many reasons why, people can continue to talk with someone or not, but it doesn't change what happened to you. So to answer your question, it doesn't really matter whether you keep in touch or not, you know? Can you remarry after an I-360 approval? Yes, you can. And for the VAW work permit, how many years is on that? So right now it is 18 months. It used to be 5 years, but right now the work permit you're going to get is 18 months. So what you want to do is that you want to time it so that at the 6 month before expiration is the day that you're submitting your renewal. So like if you're working with our firm or any other firm, don't go hire them when you're less than 180 days to say, okay, can you file for renewal for me? You want to start the process before the 180 day, so that on the 180 day, which is the earliest time before you can submit a renewal, you submit it so that you can at least have that 6 months of processing so that there's no gap in your EAD. Again, this to me is something that is going to clog the system by not giving people extensions. You're reducing the labor force. When you reduce the labor force, you're also reducing the taxes that immigrants pay to the United States. I mean, immigrants pay $94 billion in taxes, to the United States annually. Like that is no small matter. So when you stifle them and you're trying to choke them, from the ability to work, the ability to do things legally, because you keep, the whole idea is that do it legally, they're doing things legally, but you're finding ways to frustrate them. To me, it hurts the economy, and it hurts even those of us here that are Americans, So anywho, guys, I gotta jump off. Sorry. I can't get to all the questions. Oh yeah, I see someone that said facts. My husband and I, we don't want public assistance at all. Yeah, so many immigrants don't want that, like because it's like a failure. Because especially because coming from where we're all coming from, that is a foreign concept. I'm Nigerian. There's no such thing as public assistance. You better go figure out how to work. Go do whatever you need to do. It doesn't matter what job it is. Take a job and take care of your family and yourself. That's just the way it goes. Okay, guys. Oh, there's some questions I want to answer here. I'm kind of bummed that I can't answer them, but let me just check my schedule to see if I can answer. No, I can't. All right, guys. Sorry, I got to get off. But it was nice chatting with you all this morning. I hope you guys have a great day. Again, schedule consultation. All this, what else? Should I do this? Should I do that? Schedule a consultation, and we can talk about, what you're eligible for, whether you should be filing, whether you should be waiting, what's the outlook on whatever it is that you have pending. Our number here is 407-995-6567. You can also send a WhatsApp to 404-333-8751. All right, guys, have a good day. Bye.